All right, folks. Hi. We have a situation today. Well, let me show you. I have this cube. I'm going to actually duplicate it, move it over, and make it a little bit smaller. And duplicate, 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 duplicate. So now I have this little bit of a, sequence of cubes. Let's imagine that's a little tentacle. And I want to move each one of these objects into a sort of a sign pattern because that's what the client would like to see. There we go. Now a little bit of a sine curve on these. I'm going to set key, and I'm going to go to frame time. Now you saw that I had to go one by one to adjust that, and if I have to rotate, it's going to be the same thing. I mean, I could obviously go in and rotate each one, but I still have to go one by one to perform each change. So I have to, if I want to rotate all of them, I can't just rotate and rotate each one individually. I have to rotate like so, like that, and there. So now I have rotations. There is a feature in Maya called, in the attribute editor, you can see it and you click on the transform. It's called show manip default, which is fantastic. I can go in here, change this to translate. The same with this one. Let's do one more. Go. So now if I hit the hotkey T, the letter T, you'll see a separate manipulator for each one of these, which is great. I would still obviously have to do it to all of them, but once it's done on all of them, they all have the option now. They all have this ability enabled, which is great. Um, and that's it. It's a very simple script. But if I want to now go in and rotate all of them, I can't just hit the E key and rotate each one. I have to go in and select each one individually, separately, and perform this action. If I want to do this on all of them at the same time, I can select all of them, go to the attribute spreadsheet, which is located in General Editor's attribute spreadsheet, and in all, we'll see all the attributes for the selected objects, and I can now type in what this says. This is show manip default, so I can just type show. There you go, and change this to rotate. Make sure that it's not a different word. It has to be the exact spelling. I don't have the ability to have a pull down here like I do here, so I have to type it in. But the cool thing is now when I hit the T hotkey, I get an individual attribute that I can manipulate, or an individual manipulator that I can use for every single one of these objects. If I want to change it to translate, just change it like that. But the problem is the attribute spreadsheet has one not a very nice feature, which is it will flood your undos. So if I want to undo back to where they will all rotate, and I start undoing now, it'll undo one at a time. And same with redo. It doesn't just undo all of them or redo all of them at once. You have to do one at a time. It's not that great. It's not ideal. I mean, I can still perform these actions, but if you like your undo queue to be nice and clean so that one action is for one undo is for one action, this gets really tedious. So what we do to fix this or to get around this problem is we use some scripting. So in the Windows General Editors, Script Editor, I'm going to walk you guys real quick through how I write my scripts. I'm going to clear this. And first we're going to write a plan. It's very, very quick, very easy. First, what do we want to do? We want to change the default transform manipulator. Oh, I'm doing this in Mel. I want to make sure that I do all of this, or at least how I like to do it, in Python. I prefer Python here, so I'm going to paste that back in here. There we go. So I want to change the default transform manipulator for every object. What does for every object mean? Well, it means that I have to loop through every object, right? So loop through every object. All right, that's pretty great. Obviously, this logic here is the child, if you will, of this logic. So I'm going to, as Python, in good Python manners, technique, you want to, not technique, that's how it works in Python, you want to indent whatever logic belongs to another logic. Great. I'm going to add then that we know that we want to loop through every object. Okay, great. So now that means that we have to collect every object. So we have to get the objects. Objects. Great. And to do all of this, we then need Maya commands. So we're going to import that. So import Maya commands. Excellent. All right, let's do one at a time. So import from Maya import cmds. Excellent. Get the objects. We're going to use the ls command or list. So cmds.ls. We're going to open and close parentheses. We're going to say selected or selection, I believe it is, equals true. Yeah, I would want to put true because we want it to be true. And we're going to store all of this list that's going to come out, which when I run this, you'll see that it returns a list. So I want to put that into items. And then we want to loop through every object. Okay, so for every item in the list items, excellent, we're going to loop through every object. And then we want to change the default transform manipulator. I'm not sure exactly what we're doing here, so let's use Maya. Let's leverage Maya to tell us. We want to select an object. In the show manip default, I'm going to change that to, say, rotate. There it is. And that's the script. Copy that. In here, I'm going to hit enter and Control V for paste. And now this is the Mel script. This is the native Maya command language. It's very easy to change it into Python. Let me show you. So cmds dot set error, open parentheses, because all of these like to be in the parentheses, and close parentheses, and we're going to add a comma between the flags. And I think, oh yeah, and we want to, we got to change this guy. This is right now hard-coded to apply all of this changes to pcube6, which is the object we have selected right now. But we want to apply it to anything that may be selected. In this case, we're going to be looping through every item in this list, and we're going to be looping for item. So I'm going to type in here item, and then we're going to add the string. We don't want the pcube6, but we do want the name, the dot, and the name of the manipulator, of the attribute. In this case, show manip default. And the number 2 is going to be based on 0 being the first object in the list, so 0 none, 1 translate, 2 rotate. I'm just going to do these 3 for now in this example. So this is a rotate. So now if I run all of these, and I show you what happens here, right now they're all on translate. I have this selected. I'm going to run it, and it changed all of them to rotate, which is great. Now if I undo, one time it'll group all of those into one singular undo, which is perfect. That's exactly what I want. Awesome. Now the only problem with this is that this means that I would have to come in here, and every time I want to make a change, I have to press play. I have to run this command. So instead of running this command every time like this, I'm going to make a shelf button. To make a shelf button, it's very quick. I'm going to do that. Copy this whole code, you middle click it, and you drag it into the custom shelf. Excellent. And now we're going to change this custom shelf to be a little bit more interesting. I'm going to copy this code, which is the same thing here. And I know that this is 2, so this is rotate. I'm going to have 3 buttons. One for none, translate, and rotate. So set to none, set to translate, because that's the same order. I want to keep it in the same order, set to rotate. I like to keep these in the same order as the options that I'm pulling from directly, just to keep it a little easier, a little bit better feng shui, if you will. All right, so the first one's rotate. We already have the 2 set, so I don't need to do anything to change it to rotate, just need to paste it in here. And I know that this is a Python code, and that's that. Translate, same thing. I'm going to highlight this, paste it. I'm going to set it to Python. This is now 2. I need to change it to be 0, 1. Translate is 1. So I'm going to change that to 1. And then for none, I'm going to paste that, and none would be 0, because that's what it is here. 0, 1, 2, 3. And I'm Python, of course. We don't have a double click command. On the command, so if I left click it normally, I want that to go back to none. So I'm going to set this value here to 0. And back to shelves. I can now change this to default transform. Excellent. I can change the tooltip to be set default transform on located object. The icon label. So this is going to be default T. There you go. So now def T. And I might change the icon because I like to keep my icons to be a little unique. There it is. So I like this global manip for this action. I'm going to select that, and that's it. So now, if I'm going to close the script editor now. If I go in here and I select all of my objects, and I can now go in here and right-click, set to rotate, and it'll set all of them to rotate, which is great. Now I can, in here, very quickly change these values to whatever I may want to change it to, which is awesome. Now, if I want to change this to translate, I can just right-click, set to translate, and oh, wait, you know what? I'm going to go back to rotate. I can just hit undo one time, and it'll change all of them, which is great. And I can hit redo, of course. So now I can really start, animating a little bit easier, and I can just go back to rotate, or even none. Now, here's an interesting thing. If I set it to none, you'll see that I have the creation settings or the creation attribute list that I was able to get from when the cube was created. But if I change this back to translate with none set to it, sometimes you'll notice that it didn't change back to show me all of the manipulators. I have to hit the hotkey T one more time. Once it's here, that's it. I don't have to change it again between rotate and translate. If I set it back to none, then I'll need to change it again, but that's really easy. And that's it for this section. Now, one thing that I like a lot more than just this is hotkeys. I would love to be able to just hit W or E, and then, instead of having to, I love being able to just very quickly change these values like so, but I don't want to have to go in and hit E, and then I want to group all of this into one hotkey. All of these into hotkeys. So I'm going to show you how to make quick, nice little hotkeys for this. You go to Windows, Settings, Preferences, Hotkey Editor, and here we have the hotkeys. And this is going to be a little big for this screen recording. Okay. First things first, we have to create a new script. Let me get the scripts here. Edit. And I'm going to go to the pop-up menus because these are already set. I'm going to make this super tiny. I don't need to see the scripts. I just need to know that whatever I'm selecting is going to have the correct script that I need. So in this case, I'm going to hit New. And I'm going to name it. So manip to, the first one's going to be translate. Default, we can describe it, manipulator to translate. Excellent. I'm going to put it in a custom script, and I like my subcategories called itocuts. That's my preferred name. It's a Python script. And first we want to translate. So I'm just going to highlight everything, copy, and paste. There it is. It's already set to Python. It's number 1 right here, so I know that it's going to be set to translate, set run to commit, and there's the command. It's saved. Now let's go back in here and make the rotate next. So manip to rotate. Default manipulator to rotate. Custom scripts, same place, itocuts, which is right here. And I'm going to make sure that it's set to Python. Excellent. And I'm going to select rotate, copy, paste the code. Let's set to 2 right there, and save runtime command. And I'm going to put, there you go, I'm going to put both of these into Control Shift W and Control Shift E. W being, of course, what we use already for the move tool, and E for the rotate tool. I like to keep that same, that aligned, if you will. Save and close. Close the script editor, and now I have the shelf button if I need it, which is great because now I can show you guys visually right here. But if I'm in a rush and I'm animating a big old tentacle, I can now hit the T hotkey and I can start animating way faster now. Let's put that one over there. And Control Shift E, and that'll give me super fast access to all of these rotate attributes. And you know what? I don't like this curve too much. I'm going to hit Control Shift W, and I can very easily um, switch back and forth between Control Shift E and W. And I can undo, of course, in case I do actually want to keep that change. And that's it. That's how you well, it's not the most glamorous animation, but that's how you can have multiple different manipulators for any amount of objects that you have selected. And I can still, of course, go back to W to move everything together, and E to rotate everything at the same time. Obviously, everything's going to be in its own axis, but that's another story for another day. All right, that's been it. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you guys have a great time animating. All right, take care.